Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Newfound Happy Hour. I am so happy to be back after a 5-month break. That time flew. I thought it was just going to be a couple months, but here we are. My name is Sarah, and this started out as a podcast to talk about cool things happening in Newfoundland and people involved with them. And I'm sure that will still be the case sometimes, but I was really thinking about what I wanted this to be going forward and thinking about like who I am really talking to. And I think what I really want is to have like big sister advice or best friend energy and kind of be a voice that I would have wanted to hear maybe when I was in my late teens or early 20s. Because if you don't know, I am coming up on my 30th birthday in September somehow. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not. And I saw a TikTok the other day that said, like, yeah, you're an adult at 20, but at 30, you're an adult with 10 years experience. And so I actually do feel really good about that point. I feel way more confident in myself now than I did at 20 or even 25. And we kind of talk about that a little bit in this episode. I think something has led me to this has been listening to people who are older than me and maybe not older, but just have different experiences to share and have interesting takes on any given subject. And I always feel motivated when I listen to those types of podcasts and those people. So yeah, I think that is the new goal going forward. I also know that my like best feel good conversations usually happen with my friends, whether that's like having a cup of tea at book club or having a cocktail on a night out downtown. And so I thought that having a casual Friday drink on this podcast could be another way to do that. We'll have mocktails, cocktails, or in this episode, a large glass of water to prepare for this weekend. But I don't have any sisters or older siblings, and I think that I've had to look for that like big sister, older sibling type of advice in my friends or older cousins and coworkers. So I'm really just trying to be that for anyone who may want to listen. It all kind of lines up with what I did when I initially started this. If you don't know, this podcast kind of started as a blog at first that I had done a few years ago. And I had friends suggest that we take our conversations and turn it into a blog or a podcast. And I was afraid of podcasting at the time. I still am, but fake it till you make it, I guess. And I did the blog at first, and the first blog post was pieces of advice for turning 25. I was obviously 25 at the time, and to get all of this advice, I would literally go up to random older women on a night out, or anywhere in public, really. There were some at Adelaide downtown. There were some at concerts. I asked my aunts and really like any women that I had connected with in any way that I got a good vibe from. And I put all of that together, and I recently found it. So I think I'm going to share this somehow on my Instagram or in some post so that you can see it. That might be cool to see. But that's how this got started. So I think, yeah, it all kind of ties together. In this episode, I will say there's a part where we talk about making friends in your 20s. And when I was listening back, I did just want to add that we do say to go out and do things that might be more out of your comfort zone. But you can really do more low-key activities, like instead of doing things that might be more intimidating, like going out to a bar or a workout class or whatnot. There's so many other things you can do as a friend date, like just getting a coffee or hosting a book club with a couple people, things that are a little less pressure. So like I said in the episode, I have had a few people request that. So I'd be curious to see what everyone thinks about those tips and anything else in this episode. I do make a couple comments about the new space I'm in, and that's because I'm trying to record video. You might be watching this on YouTube someday soon. I'm trying to get that all figured out. So stay tuned for that. And I'm excited for that and for everyone to hear this conversation with my friend Sydney. Okay, so like I said, we're talking to my friend Sydney today. I have my new setup. It's like very bland down here. Like we just did this room, and so it's all like white and beige and whatever. So I brought these new cups for guests because it is a happy hour. although I'm drinking water this evening. um, but yeah, so like I said, it's my friend Sydney. Do you want to say your age, where you're from, how we met?
Yeah. Yeah. So thanks for having me on. Everyone knows her as Sarah, but I know her as Soz because we met through her friend in Toronto who is from Newfoundland as well, Sarah Dingwell. Through a cosmic turn of events, I feel like we all just became friends. So I'm actually back now in Calgary and I moved just before Christmas. I'm born and raised from Calgary, but I'd lived in Toronto for over 6 years prior, and now I'm back living and working here, which is an adjustment I'm sure we'll get into, but I'm happy to be back and just living the Western life out here in Alberta.
Yeah. And you've been back a couple months now? I can't even keep track.
Yeah, so I moved back maybe the week of like December 15th. So been back since then. And yeah, went back and obviously for Sarah's birthday in March, which is for over a week. But yeah, been back since then.
Yeah. Yeah, like we met in, was it August?
I think the first time that we met was August because that was kind of the big week where it was like Jonas Brothers and there's so much going on in the city. And we had like our famous like barbecue sauce day, which is like infamous, I think, in our friendship now. So,
Yeah, a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of barbecue sauce was in a lot of places one day. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It stays in the grave, that one.
yeah, but I find there's people that you just click with, and I feel like that was like instant with us. I don't remember realizing it. I just think as soon as we met, I was like, oh yeah, Sydney's a real one.
Yeah, it's so true. Hey, like I find when it's just like the conversation just is effortless. And I think too, a lot of the times when you gel with specific people, automatically you're going to gel with people that they're friends with because you obviously share the same traits and qualities that you look for in friendships. But yeah, I just remember it was just like instantaneous. And then you obviously came back in October and then we saw each other in March and you're coming out here for Stampede. So
Yes, I cannot wait. I did the Stampede in
yeah.
2018, so it's a while ago now. So I'm excited to
Yeah.
go back. But yeah, I was like making notes. I was like, is it our love for spirituality? Oh wow, our love for spirituality and saging and meditating, or just our love for life? But yeah,
Honestly, a good mix of the two. I think
mhm,
like that's the thing is I think even the one night that we were at my apartment, another infamous night in October, and we were just like talking about all things like very witchy and I just like it's so funny. Like I think when you like open yourself up to like accepting what the universe can like bring into it, that also includes friendships and good energy and people. And you're just good energy.
yeah,
So
yeah, no, so are you. This is why we clicked, I think. But
I
that's so
agree.
true. And I've done episodes before on like astrology. There's literally an episode called Witchy Shit. So
Yeah.
lines up.
I will say too, I don't know if anybody else has been feeling like this lately, but my horoscopes have been so on point lately. Like almost to like the day that I'm like reading my horoscope, like that all has been aligning and happening and what was supposed to happen in April shook out what was supposed to happen in April and
Oh,
all aspects of my life. So I'm very aligned with like energies and things like that right now. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but I
yeah.
just have noticed it's been very on point lately. So
Yes. Love it. And can you talk a little bit about your education after high school?
yeah, so I originally went to the University of Manitoba because I actually thought I wanted to be in health sciences, which ended up not being like the right path for me. And I was more interested in arts and communications, which actually led me to doing this program in Toronto at the College of Sports Media, which is basically a broadcasting diploma that gets you kind of employed in the professional sports world. And kind of the background to that is both my parents actually were in broadcasting at different points in their career. So both my mom did SATE, which is a broadcasting program here in Calgary, and then my dad actually worked for the Flames and did radio here in Calgary when I was younger. And both of them were like, "Go do something else. Like, don't do that. There's no money in it." So I knew if I wanted to do it, I'd had to be somewhere where I felt like I could succeed and get some good like industry insight and also make good industry connections, which led me to find this program that I did in Toronto. And all my instructors were actually like people in the industry who you see on TV today. And it was really great to kind of network and became kind of best friends with people in my program. And I have a lot of friends to this day who still work in the newsroom, like at TSN, and who are on air at TSN and are on Sportsnet and things like that. But as So's knows, I have like a extensive love of pop culture. So I did kind of want to broaden my horizon. So out of my program, I did an internship at the Marilyn Dennis show on CTV, which led to me getting hired and working on Marilyn, on eTalk, and at The Social kind of during the pandemic, which was a really, really great learning experience. Even got to help like produce like eTalk live at the Oscars, which is one I like to like say that I did at least once in my career, which is cool. And then I really just enjoyed actually the live event aspect of what I was doing, which led me to kind of get into the events world. So since then, I've worked kind of for Bell's like corporate national team. And then I did some like working on events like Oshiega, the Calgary Stampede on their sponsorship portfolios, worked on the professional golf world in that events realm for a while, which kind of led me to kind of start pursuing some different avenues that would potentially be of interest and kind of while building like social media acumen, working on my communications and marketing stuff. But ultimately, I'm back in more of an events focused role, which is really my niche and my bread and butter. And I find where I do the best because I'm pretty type A and I love a good Excel spreadsheet. So I'm kind of back doing that here in Calgary at a national or a global events company and loving every second of it so far. So that's kind of the professional story.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's such a cool job. And that's like an extensive employment history. I forget that you've done so much.
Yeah, and it's so funny because one thing that I was told recently, which I'd love to give people advice on, is like my resume doesn't encapsulate some of the things that I've had the opportunity to work on, because I think like you don't sell yourself as much as like other people may like see all the things you've done and they're like, you should like say way more. And I sometimes have not like owned the fact that I've had the opportunity to work on a bunch of cool different things. And I think that is something to always bring up, all the different things that you've been able to touch upon. But yeah, it's been a journey and it's been with its highs and its lows. And I'm just thankful to kind of be back in a job that I love in a city that I love too. And just kind of with everything that I've kind of learned, I call it like your professional toolbox. One of my instructors actually used that in broadcasting school. But everything I've been able to add to my professional toolbox, I think has helped me figure out kind of what I like more, which is more kind of like the events design, the decor elements. So I'm just really happy to be doing something in that realm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think everything we're going to talk about is going to like lead into how you got to where you are.
Sure.
Like just, I know you said you had a lot of friends from school, and I mean, I've met like your friends from Calgary, you have friends from Toronto, you have obviously your school friends, work friends, and you're 20.
I'm turning 28 in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always forget. Yes, because your birthday's in June. So yeah. So in your 20s, like living in so many places, meeting so many people, what do you think is most important for your friendships in your 20s?
So I will say there were times in my 20s I really struggled with friendships, and it's not because I'm a person who like lacks the ability to have a friend and be a friend. Like that's was my grandma saying growing up, to have a friend you also have to be a friend. It was more, I think it's hard to suss out, decipher what relationships are relationships that you should be putting a lot of effort into, and what types of friends are for specific seasons and reasons. Because I think that was something that was a really hard conclusion for me to come to, was growing out of friendships, actually, because people that arguably, I thought that I'd be close with to this day, maybe we're not as close as we used to be. So I think it's kind of deciphering, having the discernment to build strong relationships with people who, are going to equally feed into your life as much as you're going to feed into theirs. Because for me, I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I think I especially saw that in friendships. So sometimes I would put so much effort and so much emphasis, especially being in a new city and wanting to, have these super deep rooted connections that, when you think about it, I kind of look at the diagram of looking at soil, and you're thinking this is like deep entrenched into the ground, and it's very these like surface level relationships. But me, I don't view any relationship surface level. Like, I put a lot of effort and emphasis. So I think it is like, just being able to move through life and wear your heart on your sleeve, but also be okay with the fact that, some friends serve a specific purpose in your life. And even if they ultimately move into a different category in your life, like, that's okay. Like, changing in seasons, as like I've had the opportunity to change jobs, like, that's okay that friendships kind of change, evolve, and grow. And I will say too, like, some of my best friends here, who now being home, who I do everything with, like, we weren't even that close when I was in high school because we're childhood friends. And then now as adults, we've grown back into being even more closer. So I think it's being okay with the ebbs and flows of friendship, and knowing that not every friendship is meant to be a best friendship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's such good advice. I think, like, I can definitely relate to that because, so many of my friends have left Newfoundland and then are like, some of them are starting to come back. Some of them have come back and gone again, like Sarah being one of them. And yeah, like it does go through a flow, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad happened or whatever. Like, people just grow apart. And I think it's kind of hard to accept sometimes. Yeah, like I was thinking too, like both of us are so social and outgoing.
Yeah.
So like it's almost hard. Like, you almost need to be aware of the energy that you're putting in, because like I can make friends pretty easily. And yeah, you like need to get the energy back, because if not, then you're just giving.
Yeah. And I think that I've felt that at different times in different relationships. And it's not always this, like, that it's a shame on the other person. I think it's equally on me to also like be like, just because I'm putting in 110%, it doesn't mean that person has to give me that effort. But in the same breath, I think it is being careful about who and when you invest your energy. And I just am the type too that there were just specific times I needed to focus more on my career than I was focusing on friendships when I was immediately leaving school. And that became apparent to me as well. So I think it's just making sure that you're like spending your energy wisely. And like you and I, we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, things that are meant for you fit so well energetically. Like, it's anything in life you don't need to force. Like, if a friendship doesn't feel 100% right, it's probably because it isn't. It doesn't mean it's like a friendship that you need to cut off cold turkey, but it might just be, someone who you go for a coffee or you go for a spin class occasionally. Like, not every person needs to know the deep depths of your soul. And I think like not everyone has the capacity to meet us where we're at, because we're all at different places in life. Like, here I am, and I'll talk a little bit more about my story in a bit, but I know that this person sitting here today is a very different friend showing up in my friendships than I was showing up a year ago too.
Right. Yeah, totally. And like I was saying, like, we're both very social. I've had a lot of people say that like I should talk on this podcast about meeting friends in your 20s, because some people do find it really difficult, and I can understand it's difficult. But I think like maybe because we might not find it as difficult, maybe we can kind of talk a bit about like ways to meet friends in your 20s. I know for me, what I was thinking of is saying yes to things. It's really hard to make connections if you're just sitting home all the time. I know people are introverted, and like I'm a Virgo, so I feel like I've become more introverted as I get older. Like, I need my own space to be alone and decompress and whatever. But I think saying yes to things, like you said, that fit your energy, that you're excited about. Like, I guess what I'm getting at is, even if you're a little bit insecure or a little bit like nervous about doing something, I think the payoff is always good to like go hang out with that person who's been asking you to go for a drink, go to that spin class with someone who asked you to try it, things like that.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like where if I was to give advice, because obviously I jumped in more to just about like maybe some of like the cautionary tale that I learned from friendships in my 20s, but the thing that the best overarching thing as I'm approaching the end of my 20s is exactly that. Like, especially when you don't want to, it's sometimes the universe saying, like, step out of your comfort zone. Because my thing was, when I first moved to Toronto, I said yes to everything because I was like, I just want to see, like, if I gel with this person, if this is something I'd be interested in doing, like taking spin classes, doing whatever. The girls and I did a run club last year. I went by myself to do this women's meditation night, not knowing a soul, last year in the fall, and then ended up crying with like 5 strangers for 2 hours. But like, that's like a night I'm never going to forget. And I think everything is like such a good learning experience on how to like step out of your comfort zone and be confident in what you bring to the table. Because at the end of the day, like, that's what you want to receive, is like that energy back from someone. Like, yes, I see you. Like, I'm glad you're showing up for me in this way. And I think like telling yourself that, once again, the right people are going to accept you for who you are means that, you know, in a room where you're nervous to walk into, it might end up being a home space for you, right? Because you may find your people in the discomfort. And I think all of us too don't show it. And I, like, you and I talk about being social people. Like, I struggle on a daily basis still with like jumping on a work call, for example, and showing up authentically. Like, it's not that just because I'm a peer social that it's like necessarily easy to jump into those situations sometimes, because I think we all, especially with how hard we're judged in society, we enter a room with imposter syndrome. But developing the confidence to say, you know, if these are not my people, they're not my people. I think that that's a beautiful way to kind of approach just putting yourself out there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, just adding to that. I mean, like my friend Becky, for example, she was on the podcast before a couple episodes ago. She just like messaged me one day. She was like, I like your podcast. I like your vibe. We should hang out. And we did. We walked Signal Hill, and that was almost a year ago, and we're great friends. And I'm so thankful that she messaged me. And in the moment, she was like, this is probably so weird. Like, I don't know if this is okay to do. I was like, this is fine. This is great.
Yeah, 100%. And even your friend who now lives out here, and even Sarah, this is my like foolproof way that I slide into a potential friend's DM or someone that I've gotten a number from someone, is I'm literally just like, hey, I think that we should be friends. I've literally used that multiple times. And it's just like a cute little way to like just kind of jokingly like chat with someone. And then you go for a drink, you go for a coffee, a walk with the doggies. Like it, and honestly, like practicing those skills in friendship actually really helps in your career and also in your potential pursuit of a person as well. So I think it's just never a bad idea to start putting yourself out there in any capacity.
Yeah, I agree. And like work friends is another one. I know I've met so many friends through all my jobs. Like if you do click with someone at work, I feel like you should hang out outside of work, because so many people make such good friends through that. I definitely have. And then like those connections, like maybe you don't become best friends, but maybe like you are looking for another job later on, or they connect you with someone else who becomes a good friend, things like that. So you're right.
It's so true. And I think like that's the thing, I'm even now here about being back home, you know, messaging people who have a potential, you know, opportunity for me to connect with them in a work capacity. Like those are people who I met 12 years ago. Like you just never know when something will become something that you should potentially pursue. So it's never a bad idea to build that connection now that could be utilized in the future in a different capacity.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of going back to Calgary, do you find, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to ask you, but I guess relationships all time, like dating, friendship, work life, what are the differences between Toronto and Calgary?
So the thing was, I know that some of my friends will listen to this and they're totally okay to know that I'm like, it's weird coming back. And like most of my friends are married. Like and I've been going to their weddings and it's been slowly but surely, but like living back here, I'm like, oh, everyone's married. And I was on that path and then veered off of it. And I've loved, spending time with like specifically men of quality who my friends are all married to, who are just like excellent people and who are my friends too. And it's been great, but it's weird kind of shifting into that, like, I'm the single one in the friend group or whatever that ends up being, when, it definitely was not that way with our larger extension of group of friends in Toronto. And the thing with friends too is I think you do have to be a lot more intentional here with all types of things, with friendships and dating, because for me, I'm moving into inner city in a week and a half, but currently I'm not in inner city. So to go on dates, to go meet friends, like it does take travel to do it. So you have to be intentional with your time and your effort. It's not just this thing where you're just going to bump into your crush on a random Saturday walking down King Street in Toronto, which happened to me back in the day. But if I wanted to bump into my crush, I'd have to be a lot more intentional about it. So that's the thing. And I was looking forward to being back here, I think specifically for dating after getting out of my long-term relationship and being open to dating again, because I think the girls and people who know me will tell you that I know who I am. I have done a lot of work on myself, and I'm not going to take credit for what I'm about to say because it's what my therapist and I have worked on together, because love therapy. I think in life, the older we get, when we try to conform to society, we stray away from our authenticity. And, last year I had like a really big moment in the spring when everything was over with my ex, and I was like, man, I just don't even know who I am. And I felt this kind of before everything kind of blew up too, but I just was like, who is Sydney? Like, I don't know who I am. And when we stray away from our authenticity, like our authentic self, it actually forces us to form unhealthy attachment styles. So regardless of, putting my best foot forward, I don't believe I was like dating the right people 100% with my ex, with people before my ex, because, it was just not what was going to sit well with my soul and with who I'm supposed to inevitably be with. But now that, I feel I'm closer to who authentically I am like totally ready to meet my person. And I think because of that, I know like the type of man that I'm looking for is way more like a man who's going to put me first, who's going to honor me, who's going to, be intentional about dating. And I just really struggled with what was being put before me in Toronto, because it comes across as sometimes pretty vapid. And, that's just me making a general. I'm not saying that for everybody, but there's a certain status level, and like I want to see someone for who they are and see how they would fit in my life. And having a little bit more of like that down home, like homegrown raised, like I was excited to kind of be back here to like look for that, or something that could energetically align more with like kind of that, which is what I'm looking for. But I mean, you'll always find some like dead fish in a pond though, regardless. So I think what I will say about being back here and dating is I am really, when you start to be like, this is what I deserve. Here are my boundaries. When someone gets there and might be crossing it, you will not want to stay in that situation. And when I was a people pleaser and when I was not as close to who I am authentically, like I gripped on tightly to people I should have just like casted off and been like, go on your plank alone after the Titanic. Yeah. But I think that's what I keep on being proud of myself in this new era of me dating is, I'm okay saying goodbye to something that may not be meant for me. And I keep on seeing it too. If something is meant for you, like it will find you regardless. So if it's like not for now and needs to happen down the road, that's also a possibility. But I think we're taught to grip so tightly onto things when I've like taught myself to like loosen my grip on like every aspect of everything going on in my life rather than cling to things that the universe might be shaking me from. So that's a long-winded answer to how it's going dating in Calgary now.
But I think that's another way that we kind of clicked and related to each other too, is because we were at this kind of like a similar place being single, where we know that it's better to be alone than to be with someone who is the wrong person. And I think it takes everyone different amounts of time and going through different things to get to that place. I mean, we're both definitely there, which is great. This is probably a good segue into that relationship, however much you want to share about it.
Sure.
Because the whole point of this is like the third season of this podcast. So the kind of direction that I was going is like, what advice would I want, or what tips or what insight would I want if I was in my early 20s? And so I think your experience is probably good. I mean, for anyone of all ages, but definitely advice for someone who might be getting into the wrong relationship or overlooking red flags, or maybe things start out good and they turn into red flags. Yeah. How was that relationship for you, and how did it lead you to where you are right now?
Yeah. So I think the relationship that I keep on referencing to, you know, it made me feel so good in the beginning, because I felt like I was receiving everything that I could have ever wanted from somebody. Like, I had like the affection, I had the words, because I'm such a words of affirmation girl. And I felt so affirmed in how that person felt about me for the first like 6 months of our relationship. And I like, by like, I think we went on our first date like in January. And, you know, I knew in like end of April that I was like falling in love with this person. And I didn't know, in all honesty, just with my dating history, if I like had that capacity, because, you know, I've been through some other stuff in my life too, that I think when I'm talking about straying away from my authentic self, like that already affected me, that, you know, I didn't hold myself in the highest standard that I possibly could have in my 20s. And that's my thing that I think I like look back in such regret, is I was like this beautiful soul who like didn't even know how like much she had to offer. And I think what I received from this person was that validation that I had always wanted, but I should have been giving it to myself. So when 6 months kind of down the road, when I look back at our first year of our relationship, when they'll call it like the mask falls off or the glass breaks, and this person would become this different person, it was very hard to reconcile with the person the day before who was saying these things to me that I loved, with the treatment that I was receiving. And I think the lines get really, really blurred of like what is healthy in a relationship and what isn't healthy and what is a warning sign, because, you know, I don't think it's not healthy to fight. Like, I think there's a healthy way to fight with people, but there's also an unhealthy way to fight with people.
Yeah.
And specifically when it comes to, you know, I'm not going to get into specifics, but that's what I will like say is my advice for people is take yourself out of a situation and say, if I was watching my friend go through this and fighting like this, would I want my friend to stay in this relationship? And if the answer is no, doesn't mean you necessarily have to leave that person, but that's something that should be monumental in your relationship in the first couple of years, is learning how to fight appropriately. And say, and you know, if that means like having rules with your significant other, being like, we're never going to go to bed angry with each other, or, you know, if it's too heated, we are going to put a pin in it and we're not going to talk about it until the next day. And there's just different techniques. And I suggest if anybody is going through that, to just take some time to figure out if that is a healthy way to be dealing with things. And, you know, for me, I didn't realize the deep crevice that it made every time that we fought. Like every time it was just further down, further down. And for me, it just felt like I was questioning my own reality a lot of the time, and his reality became mine. And when he started to struggle, you know, and I don't want to get too in depth with the, you know, the meat and potatoes of what actually happened, but it was very hard to get out of it because I was so ingrained that I was like this person's life and this person's lifeline, and that they could not survive without me. And my needs were not the same as their needs because of X, Y, and Z reason. And now it just like, I've said this to my therapist, and it's something that I've repeated. I just look back at that version of myself and I'm like, oh, I'm so sad. Like, how could I get to that point where I just didn't care about my own personal needs being met in a relationship? And, you know, when things got the worst that they could possibly get, I made every excuse in the book that it was that this person still loved me, because that's how deep the crevice was, and the codependency and all those things. And what I will say is, when someone treats you in a manner that is it's unbecoming in that way, that is not a person that loves you. Like, that is a person who doesn't need to be in a relationship, and there's nothing that you can do that can save a person once they get to that point. And I think the best advice that I can give, and it took me a long time to fully walk away from it as well, is that the longer you stay, the harder it is to leave. And I will say that. And they'll say everything to you to make you feel like if you leave, it's the end of the world. But at the end of the day, I think we've talked about it a lot on this podcast episode. Like, you have to put yourself first. And there was a time where I was not doing that at all, and it affected everything. And it affected my work, and affected the way that I was handling social situations, drinking, all these different things. And it was because of like what I was receiving behind closed doors. And ultimately, like, a lot of that I've moved past, but it's always going to be a part of me and a part of my story. And if I can prevent one person from staying a day longer than they should, I'd love to do that in life. Because there were times where, you know, I was like on my knees, and I'm like not joking, like on my knees sobbing, being like, I want to leave, but I can't. And there were a lot of factors that were going into that, with like pressure from like outside sources to stay in the relationship. But I'm telling you, and this is like the thing that I will say, and that circles back to the topic of friendship. You know, I think a couple people started to see the warning signs that I was maybe going through when I was going through behind closed doors. And that person isolated me a lot. And, you know, a lot of the verbiage that I've received from friends post that was, if I only knew, like, and the hard part for me was I just felt like, you know, that nobody would understand, because they'd be like, well, why are you staying with him? And when you love someone, like, everyone knows, like, and I love people with my whole chest. Like, when I love somebody, like, I ride or die for them. And I wasn't like, I loved this person, but like something wasn't computing in the way that they were treating me. And friends offer so much more perspective because their skin in the game is you. And sometimes I think it's hard when you tell a friend something, even from a smaller scale, and they're like, yeah, he just kind of sounds like he's a dud. And that may suck, because you may not think that he's a dud, but those people truly care about you. And my advice is, never ice out people in your life who can add perspective, or at least harbor a safe place for you to share your emotions. And just be mindful of things that don't sit right in your soul. Because I even think about the very first time that I was like, this doesn't feel good. And we were up in Muskoka, and I just remember waking up the next day and I had this pit in my stomach, and it was totally my intuition telling me that something was not right about what had happened the night before. And I am so much better now, when I talked about it at the beginning of the episode, of trusting that feeling. Because I think some people, you know, oh, it's just my anxiety, it's just this. Like, there might be a reason why you're having that gut feeling. And for me, I feel my gut kind of feeling, I feel it kind of right in my sternum. And I kind of get this tightness. And I've learned to at least walk through it and not run away from it and figure out if it's an emotion or feeling I can sit in, because it might just be your body telling you that something is not right. And for the final 2-3-ish months of my ex and I's relationship, I was sick every single day. Like I had like bad gastrointestinal stuff, like lots was going on. And I know now that heart and gut connection was also something that was like, you got to start listening to this. And it's crazy how much since ridding this person from my life, every aspect of my life has gotten better. Like my health, my friendships, my relationships with just even like my parents and things like that. Like I've never been closer with like specifically my dad, because he was such a support system for going through that. And all I can say is the pain will suck. And it sucked so much, like literally like months and months of sucking. But what inevitably came was this, oh, regardless of what happens in life, I'm going to be good because I have made it through what I thought was the hardest period in my life. And now I think too, like, it's just such a learning curve, because now it's like, okay, me back dating post all of this has been interesting because it's a new dynamic, but I wouldn't have gotten here had I not kind of been through the mud to get to this place.
Yeah. And I was thinking of advice on this topic, and I was thinking like, I can tell someone who's 20 or 22 or whatever, like, avoid these certain situations, trust your gut, leave when things get, bad in any which way. But there's still a part that like you do have to go through some of it. Like just because I say something to a 20-year-old right now that, yeah, you should leave, you should do this, you should handle it this way. Sometimes you do still need to learn it for yourself to like learn the lesson.
Yeah. And I think like I am like, especially like being dating again, I'm like, oh, don't send me any more lessons, universe. Like I'm good. I've had enough. Like I'm like, I feel like I'm like too wise. Like I'm like, I don't need any more. But what I will say is, yes, like if someone had told me leave this person, I wouldn't have done it. It had to be me. Like it had to be me to that one day. And even my therapist said to me, it had to be you to get yourself to the spot to say, okay, enough now, like enough. And I think like, my advice to people who are younger is also, obviously, if a situation is unsafe, get yourself out as soon as possible. And, I wish I had gotten out sooner, but I will say that if like you have to get there yourself, because there's a lot of our brains that also think in, the sunshine and the rainbows. And if you get out and you're like romanticizing this person and still keeping them on a pedestal, like you most likely will go back. So sometimes you literally have to have that one final act of betrayal to be like, okay, I'm good. Like I have no affliction to you anymore. Like I'm fine walking away from you. In that lens too, it's like sometimes I'm like the people will tell you like go back until you hate him. So but
which I think we all do, not on purpose, but that's just how it turns out. But no, I think it's also relatable. I have so many friends who have gone through, even just on a simple scale of like, this person just doesn't care about what makes you feel good. Just something simple as that, like learning to get out of that. It's better to be alone than to be going through that. But I know on the other side of it, like really bad, every type of abuse that I have some friends who have gone through, and it's so hard to watch because like you said, like there's nothing that you can say that can like make someone be ready, I guess, just be ready to get out of it. So I'm thinking of like friends who have kind of lost friends over situations like that, where it's so hard to be there for someone. But I also have friends on the other side who are like, thank God you stayed my friend when it was really hard to be. So do you have any advice, or like, were there friends who were really there for you that helped you get out of it? Because unfortunately, I do know other situations where people, because sometimes with certain partners, they'll isolate you and they make you disconnect from your friends. They make you, you're not allowed to do certain things. You're not allowed to talk to certain people. Social media is a whole other thing. So is there any things that you wish you would have had, or things that you did have in some friends that helped you get through that?
Yeah, so I think inevitably after the big thing happened when we were separate, I was surprised with some people's way that they were kind of teetered the center rather than taking a side, who were friends with both of us. And I never expected or said to people like, oh, you have to take my side. Like, I just wanted people to trust and respect what I had said and believe my truth. And I think that was the hardest thing. Was I think people who go through trauma, they will always try and over explain their situation because they want to validate it in their head. Like, I went through this and it sucked. And sometimes they'll overshare and they'll over explain because they want people to sit there and validate them that their experience was terrible. And, what I realized was, people weren't always going to understand what I had went through. And like, people can sympathize with me. Like, people, it wasn't like people were sitting across from me not being like, I'm so sorry that you went through that. But when you're then charting your own path post a traumatic event, my path was super not linear. Like, I started to, like, I was like, should I drink more? Should I not drink at all? Should I be a recluse? Like, should I be more social? It was figuring out a path that worked for me to make me feel better and get back to being my authentic self. And not everybody's going to understand that. And you actually might lose friends post that process of actually leaving and becoming back, because maybe that person was maybe more aligned with the person you were when you were in the relationship. And that was actually the toughest pill for me to swallow, was losing some friends that way. Was, oh, this my previous version of myself, but now this more self-assured version who's stronger in her boundaries, who isn't going to put up with things and handles life maybe a little bit differently. That person doesn't align with you anymore. And that stung, because I feel, this is the best version of myself I've ever been, but it doesn't mean that every single person is going to understand the path that got you there. And you don't need to tell them, I became this person so I could like survive and then thrive, because that's the whole thing. Is you do become this person to just survive a situation, and you have to give yourself grace, and not every single person in life is going to understand that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say just being a friend on the other side of it, you kind of just have to be there for, like you said, all the ups and downs that may happen. And it's not going to be just a quick, or maybe sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not a quick, like, I'm done, I'm leaving that person, whatever. It's usually a longer journey. And so, I think my advice to a friend of someone going through that would to just stay there and let them know you're there, and just remain present as much as you can be, because when they do hit that point that they maybe want to get out, knowing that they have someone in their corner, I think can make a huge difference.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, is I'll shout her out in case she listens to this podcast, but our mutual friend, Leah, I love, like, that girl will be in my wedding. Like, she is a ride or die friend, and she also has been through some stuff, and we both kind of went through different things at different times. But, like, she picks up a call at 2 a.m. and doesn't ask questions. And that's the thing, is sometimes, like, we can't understand everything that everybody's going through. Like, I can be empathetic, but you don't need to understand to be a friend, I think, at the end of the day. And like, to just have to know that you have that support system no matter what. And we don't always have to agree with the decisions people are making and be on the same page, but to have those ride or die people who are just like, I'm a safe place. Like, I know you've been through some stuff. Like, I'm just giving you the room to just be, is sometimes much more valuable than being like, we need to solve a situation, we need to figure it out. Like, sometimes you need to just exist and like sit in the mud until you're ready to like climb out of it too.
Yeah, for sure. And so that was, I mean, your breakup was a while ago. So, yes. And I mean, you did move too. So do you want to talk a bit about how it is dating after going through something like that?
Yeah. So, I took my time before I wanted to wade back into dating. And I I will say I like this older version of myself dating than my version of myself in my early 20s. And, if I'm trying to look on the bright side of things, I love that this is the version of me that's like looking for her long-term partner, because it's such a better version of me who I'm bringing to the table. And I just like think the best advice I can give people is you are a work in progress. And if like energetically like things are just not making sense, you're not making the right people, meeting the right people in your early 20s, it might be because you're just like not the best, like you're not that version of yourself who is going to meet that right person for you. So like don't give up hope. But I have been interested, first when I got Hinge, I was like, the amount of guys I saw who I was like, man, I don't like seeing you on here, given that we were both single and had crushes on each other when we were 16 years old. So that was a little bit of a jolt. But I think being back here was good for me, because it was a good foray for me to kind of be back in the dating pool, go out with some people, figure out what works and what doesn't. But like, ultimately now, because I'm kind of back in this spot of being really like, I know what I want, I know what I'm worth, I'm not putting up with things that I put up with in the past. It's helped me have the capability to kind of weed out things that energetically feel good and things that don't. And the thing is, I am just like a lover girl at heart. Like I love love, like I love being in love, but I think I'm at the point where I don't want to say that I love somebody again, and that sounds like really harsh, until it is my like person for at least a while, because I just know that there's so much life to be lived outside of a partnership that maybe isn't like 100% it. And because like everything is really aligned right now with like having a great job, like getting this new place that I just got, and like friendships and all these things like here and across the country, it's not like a main priority, but I'm not open to it, but it has to feel right. And if it doesn't, I'm like not afraid to walk away from it too.
Yeah. And I've said that so many times on this podcast that, well, I mean, it's better to be alone than be in the wrong thing, but like you also, once you get to that place where you're so happy with yourself, and like you said, like you get the job you want, you have your friends that you maintain, you are doing all the things that are best for you, it's so hard to let someone into that who isn't gonna, or I guess who's just gonna throw off that energy, right? Like you need someone to again, match the energy in that situation too.
And my thing is too, like I don't feel aligned. Like I really do want somebody who aligns with what I want moving forward too. Like that is great. But what I'm realizing is that's actually like a bare minimum to just be aligned on like what you want for life, because a lot of people want what I want out of life, like getting married, having kids, eventually being successful at work, having the capability, like that pretty much is bare minimum. Like you're going to have similar values and things that you align with people who are just like of the same, who you're going out on Hinge dates or whichever, however you meet people. But there has to be a certain level of like, I see you for who you are, and I accept you for who you are, and I know your soul, and I can like, I'm a safe place for you to rest. And what I've realized, because I'm so protective now of my energy and who I'm spending time with and who I'm feeding into, that if I don't feel 100% like I can relax, I can be myself, it probably isn't a good fit. Because if you're months down the road with somebody and you're still not being able to like 100% be yourself, that's probably something you need to assess, because someone should like you for you. I think it is just bare minimum. And, I was seeing one thing in a group chat with our friends the other day, and it was like, oh, to talk about Barbie on your dating profile, the Barbie movie or Taylor Swift is like the equivalent to having a fish on your dating profile. And I was like, but I love Taylor Swift. Like I want my partner to not care that I'm a gigantic Swiftie, or to sing Taylor Swift with me in the car. Like I'm down. Yeah. So I think it's just getting to that spot where you're like, if this person doesn't accept me for who I am, or it's just not that great of a fit, like, that's okay. And I'm okay to release this fish back into the water and somebody else can catch him. But I think it's like what Shay Mitchell has said too. Like, if it's like not for me, that's okay. And I'm okay to like release that back into the world. And if it comes down the line back to me, then it was meant for me. But, you know, I'm starting to believe also that there are like right people, wrong time, just because I know with the season that I'm in that there's other things that I'm more focused on with my career and things like that. But I also feel like if it just doesn't feel like a fit, it doesn't feel like a fit. But it could potentially happen down the road. I sound wishy-washy with that answer. I'm just saying you have to trust yourself when it comes to whether or not you feel like you're a fit with somebody, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so good to, like, just relating it back to other relationships, like friendships, is because you often do find people who see you that way, who don't care about like the maybe nerdy things that you like. I'm not saying that's Taylor Swift, because obviously I'm but you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I don't have to love all the things that you love. Like, I have so many friends who don't like Taylor Swift. I'm not trying to convert anybody, but they're like, oh, hey, did you see the new movie? Like the Eras Tour movie? Like, you don't need to like the things that I like to be supportive of me in liking them.
100%. And I think that's also like really good advice for dating, is be really mindful about how men specifically, and this can be in female and like in any sort of relationship, but be really mindful about how someone speaks to you about things that you love. Like, they shouldn't be putting down things that are important to you. Like, if Taylor Swift is something that is important to you, they shouldn't be always telling you that Taylor Swift sucks. Like, I'm sorry. Like, my mom, even with my ex, was like, why does he always say that Taylor Swift sucks? And I was like, and I should have paid more attention to that, because regardless if you like it, and I date guys and I don't like every single thing that they like, but you darn bet I'm like, yo, it's really cool that you like green motorcycles, even though I'm just like, I don't like motorcycles. You could kill yourself. But do I show interest into what somebody else is interested because they love it? Yes. Like, that is what needs to be happening for me to be like a yes woman for my relationships and my friends' relationships, because we do not want to be with anybody who is not going to give us like that, like rah cheerleader vibe. Like, we want someone who's like, cool, you do you and I'll do me, but I'm still going to support you regardless.
Exactly. Yes. And I think that's why everyone is so obsessed with Taylor and Travis, just to to link it back to that. But no, it's so true. And I think when you do get that from friendships, it gives you more confidence to ask for that in a relationship. And I like the point that you just said about how you're happy it's this version of you that's dating, because I never thought of it that way, but it's so true. Like, if I was 20 right now dating, I would put up with someone putting down all the things that I like, and someone, you know, shit talking whatever activities I do, or always having something negative to say. So yeah, I agree with that too, that I'm in a point where, or in a place where like that wouldn't happen.
Yeah. And that's like my key advice to people, because when I was talking about going back to talking about my ex, and I was talking about what I received from him in the relationship, when I look back on it, was this validation that I was this great person, that my feelings were valid, that my life, everything was valid. And if I had worked harder, and I don't know if I necessarily had the tools at the time, and that comes with time and sometimes maturity, but to validate myself, you know, would that have saved me a ton of heartbreak? You know, like, I just think about the people that I was chasing to date when I lived in Toronto in my early 20s. And I'm just like, that just screams like that would have validated me. Like, that being with that person, that's validating me. Whereas now, you know, I'm just like, I'm great on my own. I have a lot of great things going for me. Like, I loved my grade 5 French teacher, Madame Byrne. Shout out if you're out there in the universe. And she was like, she'd always say to us, she like drew one day, because I went to an all-girls school actually from grade 4 to 9, and she drew on the board and was like, You need to be a complete puzzle. No one should be completing your puzzle. So when your puzzles come together, you're just bringing out the best qualities in the other person's puzzle. And that's why I'm just like, I don't want to be with someone who would ever complete me. Like if we broke up, like I would be devastated on the floor. Like where would my life go? And that's why it's better to take the time to get back to the best version of yourself or become the best version of yourself, whatever that ends up looking like, and then start dating. And it sucks because I know that some people are like, but I feel like I've been a work in progress for forever. And that doesn't mean you can't go out there and date. I think it's just be mindful about what aligns with your direction and your path. And if you feel like your path is converging too much with someone, there might be a reason for that. And it might be a cause for some self-reflection.
Yeah, totally. And then you get to a place where you can give advice like this. This episode is like jam-packed with so much advice.
Yeah. So I am thankful for the journey that has brought me here to be at this spot today where I can sit here and talk about what I went through, because it's just really, it's not an easy topic to talk about. And if I can give someone hope who's listening today, like one person, like that's the ultimate goal of like sharing my story, because it's not easy. And I just want other people to know that even when you're feeling like very, very alone, like there is somebody else who's going through what you have. So my advice, once again, is to lean on the people who support you because they love you no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Sos.
Oh my God. No, thank you. This is my first episode back since December. So I'm so happy to be getting this started. And I think this is it's all motivational. The goal is still to like motivate and inspire and just give advice to maybe our younger selves and people who are younger who might be watching. And yeah, I'm sure it will help some people. And unfortunately it's so relatable. Like I said, I have friends who have been in situations where it's really hard to get out of a relationship. And as like a friend too, I would say that it's so rewarding to stay friends with that person, like help see them through it. And when you do see them on the other side, like it's the best.
It's so good. And it's when you're in the valley as a friend, as the person going through it, I'm telling you, like you eventually come out of it. It does happen. It might take a really, really long time, but like, once again, lean on those support systems. And like you said, you as a friend get to reap the benefits of also being able to support those people and be in their lives and see them on the other side too. So it's okay. And it's one of those things that just, it gets better with time.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much. I can't
Thank
wait
you.
to see you in July.
Yay. Well, we will have more stories after July, I'm sure. So
just a couple. Maybe we'll do like a stampede
live
podcast review.
Live from the Wild Horse Saloon tent. Honestly, that can't be broadcasted. So
no, but yeah, I wouldn't do that to people. Yeah. But yes, thank you so much. Love you.
Love you too.
Thanks for listening, everyone. I just love Sydney's energy. She has become such a great friend and remains such a positive person after all of her experiences. So thank you again, Sydney. And thanks everyone for tuning back in. I'm hoping to get a lot more episodes out now. Usually it's bi-weekly on Fridays. And yeah, I'm really excited to connect with everyone again. I love any feedback and messages, and hopefully some of this was relatable or motivates you to be your most authentic self. I will see you next time.